Welcome back, everyone. We're going to jump away from Russian guns finally for a while. And in fact, we're going to Great Britain for these. And then I have a whole series on several interesting late 40s, 50s, 60s American firearms that are going to be, there's going to be a lot of fun doing tabletop reviews on these. Of course, this is a Martini Henry Mk. Strange history on this firearm that I have not been able to pin down. I've read several books on the Martini Henrys trying to find out information on these Mark IVs. I'll show you what I mean in a minute. It's a conversion from a Mark I. And the books themselves contradict themselves within the same book many times, and they don't agree, and so the history is very difficult to pin down on this particular firearm. It has a couple of things in it that just don't add up to what the history books tell us. So I'll show you what I'm talking about here in just a moment. But first of all, let's start with the bayonets. One of the problems with this firearm that I had when I purchased it was it came with a bayonet, and this is the bayonet it came with. It's a very nice all British bayonet, the socket type with the lock ring. Superb condition, no Nepalese type markings on it anywhere. I've got to talk to not only the owner of the gun that I purchased it from, but the previous owner, and he had a little more knowledge than I did actually of these firearms. This is a very highly polished blade, original condition. He claimed this was a parade bayonet, which very well could be. There's no evidence of it having been recently polished at all. It's just simply came out of Great Britain in this fashion. While I have it out, I'll zoom in here a little bit, flip it over for you, show you some of the British markings. You can see the 1887 is a build date. And some more. We have the WD broad arrow, which is the War Department acceptance mark. And we'll see that present all over on these firearms and bayonets. There we see it again by my thumb there. And the reason this bayonet did not fit was this particular firearm. Let me go ahead and grab it, bring it up close. It's verified empty, don't panic. A ramp front style front sight, rather than the barleycorn sight, where that front ramp would not be there. Just be a blocky style front sight. So naturally, this bayonet, there's no way it's gonna lock into place, even if it fits over the barrel around that sight. So what they did, they added a side lug to this particular firearm here. And that side lug is designed to take this bayonet. Here we have another very good English marked bayonet. And you'll choke if you try and buy bayonets like these. You'll probably choke when you see the prices on them. They're quite expensive. Think of the cost of a good firearm. Go ahead and gently pull this out. The leather sheath is a little bit floppy on this, but it's not bad. Again, there is our War Department marking with the broad arrow, and of course this one does have some Nepalese serial number or markings on it. The checkering is in reasonable condition. It still exists, a couple of chips missing. And this is a Wilkinson. There's the rarer of the two makers of these, and you can see an 1889 build date of the Wilkinson Sword Company of London having produced this bayonet. Sword bayonet, we might add, quite long. Let me get it back here. Maybe you can see it a little more clearly. Not as long as some of the French bayonets of that period, but still a sizable bayonet. We'll go ahead and show the locking on the firearm of it. Slips over the barrel, typical spring catch, locks right into place. There we have it. When I stand it up, it's only about 2 inches shorter than me. Sorry, I can't show you that whole thing. We don't have enough room. So that's about 5 feet 8 inches with the bayonet attached. So let's zoom in and take a little closer look at the firearm itself, and I'll explain why I'm having a few troubles figuring out exceptional condition Mark IV. And we'll zoom in. You can see some of the proof marks that are present on this firearm. Has the long Knox barrel. Has the long lever, the later long lever, added for use of the for help with the extraction. You can see the markings. We do have some Nepalese markings on it, as well as the original rondelle is present. I don't know if we'll be able to pick it up in here under this light, but it has been overstamped. It is right here in this location, right here, but has been overstamped. As you can see, in many places on this, we'll have the double arrow symbolizing it was sold out of service. And here we have the Mark IV markings. Now, you can see how the V of the 5, Roman numeral 5, is offset. We have a center line down this with the 1, or the I rather, representing the first part of the 4, is offset a little bit, is in line rather, causing the V to be offset. That's an indicator that was done later. It was converted from a Mark I to a Mark IV. And there we also have the double arrow I was talking about. It indicates it was sold out of service. It was removed from service and then sold. The long lever on these, you can see, if we can get some more views of some of the proof marks and whatnot on this firearm. The War Department broad arrow, if that'll come in for us. Now, oftentimes you'll see a repair mark under the stock indicating the short lever was changed to a long lever. This one does not have that. Doesn't mean it wasn't done to this firearm, just means possibly this is not the original stock. These were moved around a bit. Now, part of the problem I had, show you the operation of the gun. This cocking indicator remains to the rear after the gun is cocked. When it's been fired, see it moves to the straight up and down position. But to continue on with part of the problems I have with the conversion on this is usually an indicator that the barrel was converted from a Mark I to the Mark IV. It required a caliber change. The British were, of course, that was a great time of firearms development, the late 1800s, when we began introducing smokeless powder and smaller calibers, finding that the smaller calibers worked better. These are a 45 caliber. They moved them to a 402 caliber, and then they started developing the 303 British and discovered, whoa, now we've got to supply our troops with 3 different ammunition, 3 different calibers. So they decided to go back and take all the 402 rifles, the Martini Henrys, and convert them back to the original caliber, the 45 caliber, the 577 45. 577 because it's based on the 577 Snyder cartridge, and the term became 577 45, or 450 rather. So anyway, to do that conversion, it was done in 2 manners. The barrel would have been replaced if it was destroyed in the process of trying to bore it back out to the 45 caliber, or it would have just been bored out to the 45 caliber from 402. But the indicator that boring took place is usually indicated by a double row of proof marks on the bottom of the barrel, which this one does have. But for some reason we have the long knocks indicating a later barrel, and the ramp style front sight instead of the earlier barleycorn style front sight. So I'm sure this was a conversion gun of some sort. Now we also have some indicators that NEP indicates it would have been seen some use in Nepal. So this probably went to it was a gun from India, from that Nepalese cache that Atlantic and IMA brought into the United States. You cannot no longer get these from Atlantic, only IMA, or as such as I did, purchase them as from a private owner. This sling, of course, is a reproduction. It's the correct darker colored Mark IV sling with correct English markings on it, and these are available. You can find some that are not correctly marked, but I went with the correctly marked one. I believe World War Supply is the place you can get those, and I get many of my slings from World War Supply. They do a great job in helping us bring back these old firearms in a correct manner. Now, as I said, I wasn't going to originally buy one of these simply for the fact that shooting them is exceptionally expensive, and the reason for it is the 577 brass itself. It's just not commercially available, made today. Well, the brass is made today by, let me reach over here and show you the head stamp on some current production Australian made brass. This is this brass I'm holding here is from the old Kynoch ammunition. See the head stamp on it. And this brass is exceptionally hard and exceptionally hard to reload. If you can save them, you can see this one has a cracked neck on it. This often happens when you fire these, simply to that old hard brass, and they are fueled with cordite too, so not the most reliable shooters readily available. But you're looking at, if you're thinking of buying a box of this for $50-$60 for 20 rounds, you're probably not going to get very much reloadable brass. This firearm, as I said, was not going to be on my purchase list, but it came with the ammunition and a bayonet. Not the correct bayonet. I had to come up with the correct bayonet. But since it came with the ammunition, I said, I'm going to go ahead and do this, because it came with a full box of ammunition. Half of it was this Kynox, half of it was, or maybe a third of it was Australian brass, and yet another third was 24 gauge shotgun shells converted. And these have become very difficult to find themselves, these 24 gauge Magtech shotgun shells that you convert both to the 577 Snyder and the 577 450 Enfield round. Very easy conversion to do as long as you have the dies. You're going to look at least $100, $110 for the dies to do it with, for either the Snyder or the Lee makes them, or the Enfield round. So be wary if you purchase one. You're going to have this problem if you're a new buyer. These are just simply not available anymore either. For some reason, the supplies have been very sketchily for years. They've dried up. Luckily, I have a couple of boxes laying around. One has already been converted to the Snyder round, and I'm going to preparing to convert the rest of them to the Enfield round, just for giggles. Here's this 24 gauge shotgun shell that has been converted to a Snyder round. You can see I anneal them, and incidentally, I annealed the old Kynoch ammo, and just in an attempt to soften it, to get it to run through my reloading press. Oh boy, was that that was a chore. These things are so difficult to work with. It's best just to neck size them. Otherwise, you're going to lose a lot of cases by ripping the rims off, which I did a few times. I figured out, boy, let's not do that anymore. Even after double annealing them, they were simply too hard to work with. So there we have it. There's the Snyder round compared to the Martini Henry round. And we'll call that closing now. My battery's dying, so thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time with a bunch more American firearms. Thanks for watching.